The big news today was the announcement by FIFA of the host countries for the 2030 and 2034 Men's World Cups. Now, we've known about this for over a year and a half. The bigger of the two stories, certainly, the decision to award Saudi Arabia the tournament in 10 years' time. As I say, Richie, we have known about this for a while. We got confirmation of it today with this acclamation of the two bids for these tournaments. How do you feel, particularly about the Saudi Arabia announcement?
Yeah, it's a Saudi Arabia decision announcement that's really kind of grabbed attention. You're right. No one is surprised by this. We knew this was coming. But we're just kind of facing the reality that yet again, our anticipation, our enjoyment, maybe our coverage of a World Cup tournament is going to feature dilemmas about how much do we talk about migrant debt workers or discriminatory laws, repression of women, criminalisation of gays. Like, do we give that much airtime? Do we not mention it at all? I don't think we learn anything new about FIFA. There's no new concerns. There's no new disappointments. If you've been watching FIFA and how they operate over the last number of years, they're motivated by one thing, and that's to maximise their commercial revenue. And these days, given the investment in sport by Saudi Arabia, if you're doing business with them, you're making a lot of money. So that's FIFA's bottom line, is to make as much money as possible.
Stephen, what do you think? We hear a lot about sports washing. Miguel Delaney has written a brilliant book about it, particularly with the connection with football. But what's in this for Saudi Arabia?
It's actually hard to know, because I think look at the sports they've gone into already. They've gone into golf, they've gone into boxing in a big way, they've had Formula One. So all these are trying to create an infrastructure and create us looking at them in a better light, and maybe overseeing the issues that Richie spoke about. But I think with a World Cup coming to town, sometimes they're going to probably highlight these, because you're going to talk about migrant workers. We're going to talk about the state of facilities they have, that they have to try and get in place before this tournament comes in 10 years. So for them, it's trying to create a better atmosphere and a better idea of what is in Saudi Arabia for the world as a whole. Whether that's achievable through football, I'm not too sure. I think if anything, the question marks we're going to have is probably going to be aimed at FIFA and what they've done and why have they allowed this. The reasons are money. It's 100% money motivated, and the fact that these are the biggest powerhouses and biggest financial gain for any sporting industry is coming from Saudi Arabia at the moment. If you want to earn in sport, Saudi Arabia are the ones that are probably going to pay the most. And if you get involved with them, you know you're onto a massive payday. So for FIFA, they were always going to go down this road. This was never not going to happen. And it was just disappointing that there's not stuff being put in place to see some sort of change in Saudi Arabia along the process. And I think that's what the question marks everything's going to be talking about, is that what have FIFA done to try and ensure a better place over there for everybody else looking in.
They're doing nothing. They're not motivated by that. They don't they don't pretend that they are. They've put nothing that we're aware of, no binding agreements demanding any kind of change at all. So FIFA have always said this is about spreading, they'll stick to the line, this is about spreading the game to new territories, expanding the game, growing the game, all of those kind of phrases. Nothing else is of interest to them. They pay lip service to lots of things, but when it comes to it, it's about making money, and this is their biggest source of income.
I'm conscious, all the discussions that we had about Qatar 2 years ago, this time 2 years ago, the human rights concerns, the same issues. And Amnesty International said initially that things did improve, but that progress now, in a recent report, they say, has slowed. From a Saudi Arabia perspective, Richie, they've 10 years to do this. They've to build all these stadiums. Thousands and thousands of workers will be employed to work on those. Is there anything to point us in the direction that they've 10 years to get this right, that they could improve things in that 10-year period for workers, for people who live in their country?
Well, what we know is that the reforms that Qatar introduced in the build-up to the last World Cup, they've rode back on them since then. And I read some report over the weekend that apparently 21,000 is the number of migrant workers that have died since 2016 in Saudi Arabia. And you think of how much construction is now going to take place based on FIFA's decision today. They have to build 11 new stadiums. One of those stadiums has to be built in a city which also has to be built. They're building a dance city. So again, the wording of Amnesty and human rights reports are that this is unquestionably going to lead to several people dying. How big that number is, we don't know. But this is just rinse and repeat from all the conversations we've had about Qatar. And I hate the fact that our discussion about football tournaments or Champions League is now kind of tainted or spoiled by topics like this that we can't ignore, but we don't really want to discuss. And not a damn thing is going to change, no matter how much FIFA get criticised or how much the decision is highlighted or how much the process is criticised. It'll just happen.
I think the problem is as well is that when the accountability that we want FIFA to have for giving a tournament to a country like this, you want to feel that FIFA, being the world governing body of football and supposedly wants football for all, which is great. You should go into different countries that's never been before. You should bring it to places it's never been. That's all well and good, but can they make those countries they're giving it to accountable in some way for what might happen for them to get to a point where they host that? And FIFA just won't do that. That's the problem now. I don't think they're going to put anything in place that Saudi Arabia have to commit to something to show change before it happens, because the funding they're going to give them is so astronomical that FIFA will be happy just to go, well, that we can spread that around football and we can make a change in that way without actually affecting what's happening in this country.
At the same time, though, FIFA, the hierarchy is answerable to its members. There are 211 member countries, more than the United Nations.
Which all these members will probably benefit financially more from Saudi Arabia being involved in any other country right now, because they're the ones willing to probably spend the most on a tournament like this than any other nation. So FIFA will go, well, yes, there's question marks. Norway have asked questions and have said they're unhappy with it and different things, but no one's going to, I don't see any country putting their foot down and saying we won't attend this tournament in a stance not to have it there. And they will obviously benefit somehow from the trickle-down funds that FIFA will spread out to these nations from the funds I get from Saudi Arabia. And that's where the problem lies, because they'll benefit from it somehow financially because of it.
Like one line from the bid document, Saudi Arabia says that the World Cup will be part of a journey of remarkable transformation. I'm conscious, Richie, 3,000...
What does that even mean?
Look, you can put your own interpretation. That's what they say.
Yeah.
It's up to you how you interpret it. There's 3,000 Irish people who live in Saudi Arabia, Irish citizens. I know one of them who lives and works out there. There's Irish businesses who are operating there as well. And I think we sell $1 billion worth of produce to Saudi Arabia every year. Yeah. Is it right that football or sport should have to kind of take the lead on this? Should the politicians not be doing it? Should big business not be doing it to speak out? Because only 2 of the member nations involved today at the FIFA Congress, this virtual Congress, raised any concerns. The English FA were about to, and they were told, don't do that unless you're going to boycott the tournament. Yeah,
and I don't think you've only 2 options, which is to stay silent or boycott. I think you can participate as a nation, you can show up as an FA, you can take part as a player, you can show up and work as a pundit. God knows if they want this in the seats in 10 years' time. And you can give your views and you can criticise. That's part of the job. Yeah. But in relation to the decision, you're right. Governments do business, big businesses do business, individuals can go and work. But by putting a World Cup there, people from all over the world, all different ages, all walks of life, a lot of different countries, are now have to go there. And lots of them are women, and lots of them are gay people, and lots of them like to give their opinions openly and freely on social media. Like, there was a woman this year in Saudi Arabia who objected on social media to the fact that in Saudi Arabia there's a law which states that women need the permission of a male relative to travel or to marry. She spoke out against that on social media. She got jailed for 11 years. That was this year, right? So we'll get back to talking about football in a moment. And then when we get to the World Cup, we'll talk about football. But these are issues which just taint the entire shagging.
We've got